Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Neuen. And let me be the first to welcome you back to this third and riveting. See, when you walk on me, that's not good, Donna. Didn't you learn anything from watching Sean Hannity or watching Greta Van Susteren or watching Judge Jeanine Pirro?
Yeah,
they walk all over their guests.
They say the same thing over and over again. I know Hannity's had a construction career for 20-some-odd years.
I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen, and let me be the first to welcome you back to segment number 3, top of the second hour, a riveting show, if I do say so myself. And, Donna, we've got somebody that's a very special guest, more special to me than you.
Well, I'm going to kind of sit on the sidelines here. I am going to let you pretty much handle most of this because this is your business.
This is my world.
And this is what pays the bill.
And this is my friend.
We're talking about the entertainer coach business.
And for all the liberals, what that means, let me translate that to any liberal that's listening. Mm-hmm. Rock and roll bus.
Yeah, but the thing is, it has some connotations that we have to get into here. Some angles we can branch off into, especially healthcare and or lack thereof.
So all right, so here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen.
Neuen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Donna. All right, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a dear friend of mine. I've worked with him for a lot of years. 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. I will refer to this gentleman throughout this entire segment as Bones. His nickname, his industry, everybody in the rock and roll industry, pretty much rock and roll industry, but definitely the rock and roll bus industry knows Bones. And they know Bones as Bones. They don't necessarily know him as John Crawford. John Crawford, my buddy Bones, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio, buddy.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, now, for those I need to set the stage, Bonesy, on what's going on here and what's happened to you, and I'm going to do it very quickly. Back a couple of years ago, I got a phone call one weekday morning that Bones had been involved in the one thing, pretty much, the horrific moment that any of us that have driven rock and roll buses, or for that matter, buses, fears. And that was that Bones basically ended up plowing into the back end of a fixed object, or at least a stopped object. And the ramifications of this really, really serious accident was epic in our industry on a number of levels, and we've only got about 23 minutes to discuss this, so we're not going to be able to get into everything that we'd like to talk about on this. But Bones, why don't you set the stage for everybody that's listening as to what happened that foggy morning outside of Aurora, Colorado, I believe is where it was.
Yep, exactly where it was. We were coming from Lawrence, Kansas, headed to Denver. And it was your typical night. It was cold, but it's just your typical night. Nothing out of the ordinary, other than the fact that when the sun started to come up, it got really, really foggy. I mean, like, so foggy that I literally dropped my speed down from 70 miles an hour down to 45. Now, as a bus driver, you don't think about the bad things that happen. You just know that you got to get from point A to point B, and you got a timely manner to get there. You don't think about what could possibly go wrong because that's a negativity. You don't think about it. You just, when there's fog, you drive slow, but you continue to drive. You know, I never heard of stopping in fog. So as I was driving through the fog, you got to a point where it was so bad that you couldn't see anywhere where you were going. And within literally seconds, I saw a fixed object, which was a semi, stopped in the middle of the highway, and I had no time to do anything but try to turn the steering wheel out of the way and put myself in harm's way more than the passengers. And
yeah, because you tried to turn to the right, Bones?
Correct.
Which meant, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that can't envision this, you know, in these rock and roll buses that the world that we live in, you don't have a big engine in front of you. That engine's in the back of the bus. And so as the driver of the bus, you've got probably 4 to 6 inches, maybe.
Essentially the bumper. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You don't have a big tractor trailer front end in front of you.
And you've got this massive windshield in front of you. And so, you know, this fog sets in. And I can tell you, what time did this happen, Bones? Local time.
I think it was like around 6:37. It was quite early in the morning.
All right. And you're also coming out of... Yeah, you're also coming out of that dreaded 2 hours roughly, at least when I used to drive, that 4 to 5, right in that range is that tough time. At least it was for me every time. You know, everybody else on the bus is asleep. I'm assuming everybody on the bus was asleep when you were driving. And you're cruising along, fog sets in, you back it down. All of a sudden, you see the back end of a tractor trailer that is stopped in the middle of the interstate. Now,
correct.
45 miles an hour, for those that you can't put this into any type of you can't wrap your head around it. When you are in a vehicle that's weighing, you know, someplace around 40 to 50,000 pounds.
Plus pulling the trailer.
Yeah. So you had another probably 10,000 behind you. And you hit a fixed object at that point that weighs about the same amount of, about the same weight that you are. Physics ends up kicking in, and it's an unbelievably serious situation. Bones, what happened when you made contact?
I thought it was a dream, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was real, possible that could ever happen to me. But when I did wake up from the accident, I felt my right leg bone sticking out of my leg, and I knew there was a problem right there. And I just literally went into shock mode, you know. No windshield in front of me. It was cold, started to snow, and the next thing I remember is a firefighter next to me asking me if I was allergic to anything, and then giving me a shot, and I literally didn't wake up for like 3 days after that. So I didn't really feel them carrying me out of the bus. I knew it took them a while to get me out. They were trying to put chains around the steering wheel to release the pressure off of my legs. And when the firefighter gave me the shot, that was the last I remember.
I would assume they probably hit you with morphine or something like that.
Something that knocked me out, whatever it was,
yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your injuries. Now, clearly, your legs took the brunt of what happened.
Correct.
And to put this into perspective, Bones, what was the date that this accident took place?
April 17th, 2015.
Okay, so we're over 2 years.
Right.
Are you walking on your own at this point?
No, sir, I'm not.
How many surgeries have you gone through?
6 so far. 6 surgeries.
And you're confined to a wheelchair, and are you able to get around on a walker?
Not yet, because I ended up having an infection in my foot, which took them 6 months to find the infection. One, because I didn't have the insurance that would qualify me to get the care that I needed. An MRI, you just can't go to a hospital and get an MRI without having a reason to get MRI. You know what I mean? If you had, I just didn't have the coverage to get the things I needed. So they just went the X-ray version instead of the MRI version.
Which gives you nowhere near the information that they need, right?
Correct. If you have an infection, an X-ray is not going to show it.
All right.
That's the only thing they had to offer.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the insurance. And there are certain aspects of this, Bones, that you and I have talked about that we are well aware of that we're not going to get into, obviously, on a radio show. But you found out shortly after you were able to, come out of the real trauma of what had happened. You found out that you didn't have the kind of medical coverage that you actually thought that you might have had, right? Is that safe to say?
Yep. Well, how about this, Don? Everybody on the bus was covered except for the driver.
That's right. Well, here's the deal, and I'll say this on behalf of our industry, because many of us in the industry, if not all of us, and when I say us, I mean the coach companies, we didn't realize that there was a little bit of a microscopic print in all of the insurance underwritings that we've got, in which the big $5 million policy that we all have, that's a commercial vehicle policy in our industry, doesn't cover the driver.
And that's how you found it out after this accident?
That's how we found out about it. We got a phone call.
You gotta be kidding me.
We got a phone call. It was either the same day that Bones had his accident or the next morning, in which our underwriters were asking us the following: are your drivers covered under workers' comp? Well, yeah, if they're on our insurance, if they're on our payroll, they are. Well, what if they're not on your payroll?
I mean, if the artist pays them?
Yeah.
So that takes them off workman's comp?
If the artist didn't have it. See, all of us were under the impression that the drivers were treated just like everybody else on the bus.
Yeah, but you know what happens when you assume.
Yeah, but and that wasn't even an assumption that we made. I mean, that's what we thought was going on.
You would think so. Yeah, because it would make sense.
Go ahead,
no one in the industry has ever told me that you must have your own insurance prior to driving the vehicle. I just never thought about it.
Well, the thing is,
automatically thought you were covered.
Yeah, but the thing is, you didn't need your own insurance. Here's the big flaw in what happened with this. In the eyes of the Internal Revenue Service, a bus driver like Bones, like me when I drove, like all of our guys, can't be considered an independent contractor. Now, if you could be an independent contractor, then it's your responsibility to provide health insurance for yourself.
Correct.
But the IRS asked two questions that make it to where you can't qualify, Bones. I can't qualify. I could when I own my own my own buses. But the bottom line is, the two questions are this. Number one, are you operating your own equipment? No, Bones, he wasn't.
Right.
Number two, if you're not operating your own equipment, do you have employees? No, he doesn't have any employees. As a result, in the eyes of the IRS, he cannot qualify to be an independent contractor. Therefore,
but what is he then?
He must be an employee of someone. And if he is an employee of someone, which with the IRS rules mandate by those two litmus questions they ask, he must, as an employee, therefore have workers' comp insurance.
And that's why the insurance company did not pay for any of my medical bills.
That's right.
Whatsoever.
That's right. And so, a very, very, very little sliver of the silver lining of this cloud that Bones has had to endure is that it sent a tsunami through our industry that next day.
I can think.
Okay? And as a result, now see, Bones, you probably remember back in the days when you were driving with us that you were on, at the time, it was probably CAP's payroll.
Correct.
Okay. Every time you did a drive with us and you were paid through CAPS, you had workers' comp because you were an employee.
Correct.
But in the situation that he was in on this particular tour, he was being paid by the band. or by the band's business management, I don't know which one it was, as an independent contractor, which meant unknowingly to him, he was totally without insurance. So, Bones, what are some of the things, if you don't mind getting into them, you don't necessarily have to get into the financial aspect of it unless you want to really drive a point home to the listeners.
Well, I'm wondering if Obamacare and the problems, this is in the height of Obamacare a couple of years ago, too, if that's a problem.
It actually helped him.
Well, that's
if
good.
I'm not mistaken, right, Bones?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
So, all of a sudden, you start going through these multiple surgeries over months and months and months. Your life has been changed like no one that's probably listening to the show right now can even fathom.
Right.
But you're also now with massive medical bills.
I believe, Donna, it's over. It was when I left Colorado hospital. It was over 800,000. I can't imagine what it is now, but I would say probably in the $2 million range, if not more.
And that was, you were provided with that medical care though, without having any insurance, correct?
Correct.
They performed the operations, the surgeries, the rehab, the physical therapy. That's been going on for you without having any type of formal medical insurance. Am I correct in that?
Well, I did end up getting Medi-Cal, which is California state insurance. So that helped me out a lot, getting Medi-Cal. I signed up for it when I was in the hospital, and I ended up getting that. That helped out with basically, the Obamacare or whatever. It all worked out to, I was able to get the basic necessities that I needed.
Okay.
At the time. Other than surgeries and to test out, MRIs and stuff like that, I did not get. But I was grateful to get whatever I did have,
Yeah. Are you anticipating any additional surgeries, or have they done what they can do?
They've done pretty much everything they can do. I was, like I said, on a walker until, the infection in my foot became infected. It just started out as a ulcer or a blister, which turns into an ulcer, which turned into an infection, which put me in a situation where I had to get an amputation of my left pinky toe.
Are the doctors... Go ahead, Donna, you've got a question.
I'm just wondering, is it almost like a gangrene situation? And had you had the MRI, it could have been stopped?
I believe they would have known I had an infection, and they would have gave me antibiotics to kill the infection. So because I didn't have the coverage, I didn't get the MRI, therefore I didn't get the things I needed to have. And the infection ended up, or the blister or so-called ulcer ended up being an infected bone in my foot.
Yeah, and it's real hard to deal with a bone infection, as you will attest to.
It's unbelievable. I mean, your leg does things on its own, or your foot, and it just affects your whole body. Not just your foot, it affects your whole body. The bloodstream in your body, everything is just all affected. And it's a terrible ordeal. I went from one surgery, and, doctor's like, I think I got it. Well, why do you think you got it? Why don't you know that you got it? Why can't they put the foot underneath some kind of machine to say the infection's gone? Yeah. They don't do that. They just do the surgery. I think I got it. Oh, wait a second, I didn't. Go back in number 2. I think I got it. No, go back in again. So I did 4 of those.
Wow. I know you want to walk again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you believe that you will?
Absolutely. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
We've got about.
I won't run a marathon, but I said I won't run a marathon, but I'll definitely get back up on my 2 feet again. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, Bones, there's a lot of people that I work with every day that love you like a brother, and they also, when they come through the Southern California area, and I've seen numerous times where you've hooked up with drivers, I know that they are all waiting on the day when you walk into that restaurant to meet them.
Right.
Can I just ask one thing?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, a lot of times tragedies lead to open doors in other areas. Are you thinking about talking to these other drivers at length about making sure that they're covered? Like, I mean, this is a nightmare scenario for somebody who drives for a living.
I would definitely like to talk to other drivers, but rock and roll bus drivers are hard to talk to. You know, you can't tell them not to do something because each individual driver is their own. You know, I like to tell them what I've been through and experiences that I've had that maybe that could help them out, but. You know.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes, and then we've got to go to a hard break. Bones, what I'd like to do at this point is open this radio interview, this radio show up to you. And 2 minutes can be a long time when you're not talking with a rehearsed. It's a long time when you got a script. But
right.
if you had, you know, our industry, I consider it to be like the special forces. We've got a very limited and finite number of professional entertainer coach drivers. I'm going to guess that it's probably around 1,200 in North America at this point. If I had all 1,200 of those in a big conference room at a resort, at a hotel, and I gave you the microphone, you've got about a minute. What do you tell them?
Make sure you're covered and to take care of yourself physically. You know, you never know when it's going to end. You know, or it's going to change. You just don't know. You know.
If you were in California, that was your home state. Do you find California covered you better than most? Because it does have, you know, a huge government support system. For illegals, I'm hoping that it might have helped you a little
for
more.
For legal people like Bones.
Exactly. For somebody who's an actual citizen.
I would definitely say it was beneficial for me. It's, you know, I had a home in Tennessee, and I just didn't know how well I was going to even be covered. California was the safest place for me to go. And it's worked out well. I mean, it's been a long process, but, you know.
Well, there's one thing that has come out of this, Bones, that I know you and I talked about last week at some point. And anybody that ever worked with Bones knew that Bones basically took a pack of cigarettes, cut the end of it off, and smoked the entire pack in one fell swoop, right?
You could say that, yeah.
Okay. And Bones, I would like for you to announce to the listeners one of the things that came out of this tragedy.
I have not smoked a cigarette since the day of the accident. That's a good thing.
That's a huge hat tip, brother. And the other thing, I would be absolutely remiss in not allowing you to give a hat tip, but there's a very special individual in California that you happen to be very close to that has been your guardian angel throughout this whole thing. And who's that?
My girlfriend, Marcy.
There you go.
Yep. She's my lifesaver. Without her, I wouldn't be alive. I can guarantee that.
Well, I cannot think of a better statement to end this interview on than she's your lifesaver. There's a lot of people that I know in this industry that know exactly how much she means to you and how critical Marcy was in the fact that you're able to talk to me today.
Well, put it to you this way, Don. Imagine just moving in together, starting a relationship, and this happens a couple months after you're living the dream of a life. And it got taken away from me, and she stuck by me. What woman, I don't know, in the right mind would stick by somebody like that, but she did.
Well, that goes to show you true love and loved ones and the people that are special in your life, the ones that really do care about you and how important that is. But the bigger story I'm seeing from my angle is that people need to look at their insurance and make sure, no matter what career they have, that they're covered, especially, though, if they're out on the road and you could have a situation like this. And thanks so much for joining us, giving us what's going on in your life now, some 2.5 years later. I just can't imagine. But thank God you have a good support system with your loved ones as well. Bones, thanks again for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, anytime, guys.
All right, take care.
Who we got coming up next, Donna?
We are going to close the show with someone who has 20 years of service in the U.S. MC. That is one Jessie Jane Duff talking about women in the military, among other things, coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, with their